Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the American Academy of Actuaries Call for Volunteers information session. I'm Tony Washington, the manager of volunteers and member engagement here at the Academy. Joining me today is volunteer and chairperson of the Medicaid Committee, Marlene Howard, as well as Director of Public Policy Outreach, Katie Zurich, here at the Academy. We're excited to have you with us today so you can learn about the many ways to get involved here at the Academy through our various volunteer opportunities. Whether you're new to volunteering or looking to expand your current involvement, today's session will provide you with comprehensive information about how you can contribute to the profession while advancing your own career. Let's take a look at the agenda for today. We're going to first start off by talking about the Academy, and then I'll talk a little bit about the volunteer structure. Then Marlene will talk about benefits of volunteering, volunteer roles and responsibilities. And then she'll throw it to Katie, who'll talk about volunteer opportunities, specifically opportunities with high priority committees, and we'll talk about what that means later on. And then we'll go into the call for volunteers process. I'll talk about the interest form that you'll be completing, and then we'll do a brief Q&A at the end. However, you do not need to wait till the end to put any questions that you have in the Q&A box. You can do that anytime throughout the presentation. So I'm going to briefly speak about the Academy, specifically the vision and the mission of the Academy. So our vision is that financial security systems in the United States be sound and sustainable, and that actuaries be recognized as the preeminent experts in risk and financial security. And our mission, which I love because it is really short and to the point, to serve the public and the United States actuarial profession. Now, let's talk a little bit more about the Academy's volunteer structure. So this structure is designed to address different areas of actuarial practice and professionalism, while at the same time maintaining effective governance and oversight. So if you look at the slide here, at the very top level, we have the Academy Board of Directors, which is in this set, which they provide overall strategic direction and governance. And the board is supported by two independent bodies, the Actuarial Standards Board, shown in red on the left, which develops actuarial standards of practice, and the Actuarial Board for Counseling and Discipline, shown on the right, which handles professional conduct matters. So under the board's umbrella, we have several categories of committees and councils. So each are color-coded, so hopefully you can follow along with me here on the slide. So first we'll talk about the Practice Council, shown in green on the left. And that's where the majority of the committees for the Call for Volunteers live, is under a Practice Council. So practice councils address specific actuarial practice areas, and we have 5 of them. We have retirement, we have life, we have health, casualty, and we have risk management and financial reporting. So each council is also chaired by a vice president that oversees committees and task force relevant to that practice area. Then in the dark blue, we have the presidential committees. And these committees support the president's initiatives and ongoing organizational needs. Then in the light blue, follow along with me here, I know it's a lot, we have the committees of the board, and they handle governance and operational matters. And then when it comes to the Council on Professionalism and Education, shown in purple, this encompasses committees focused on maintaining professional standards. And this includes committees like the Committee of Education, Committee on Qualifications, just to name a few. And finally, we have the presidential leadership committees on the right-hand side, shown in yellow and orange. So this structure, ensures comprehensive coverage of all aspects of the actuarial practices, while also maintaining clear lines and authority as well as accountability. So each volunteer opportunity that you will see today fits within this framework, giving you multiple pathways to contribute based on your interest as well as your expertise. Now, I'm going to throw it to Marlene, and she's going to talk about the benefits of volunteering.
Thanks, Tony. I'm happy to be here today to talk about some of the benefits of volunteering, just particularly through my lens and my experience, although I'm sure there are many more benefits than maybe what I will cover today. So I've been a volunteer at the Academy for nearly 10 years, first as a member of the Medicaid Committee, and now as Tony mentioned, as chair of the Medicaid Committee, and this is my 3rd year. So this has been, during my volunteering, I've really met a lot of great people, and this has been such a rewarding experience. And we'll get into some of that here. So first of all, I think volunteering helps you to be part, provides an opportunity for you to be a part of something impactful, something larger than yourself. You contribute to the U.S. actuarial profession, support the Academy's mission, also helps to diversify the profession. I think through volunteering, you can educate, aspire, and support the profession for future actuaries as well, and just inviting diverse perspectives. I think that last bullet here on this slide is probably most impactful for me, where you can provide an actuarial lens to the dialogue on public policy. And really, what that means is you provide an objective and independent perspective. We have an opportunity to educate legislators and other policy decision makers on the actuarial implications of proposed policies. And that can be achieved through various avenues, whether it's comment letters, issue briefs, webinars, meetings. I've had an opportunity to join visits on the Hill, which have been fantastic. We've also met with various government agencies, for example, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, the Congressional Budget Office, and the Government Accountability Office. So lots of great opportunities to just feel like you're being a part of something larger than yourself. I think on this next slide, I think these are probably pretty obvious. You get a chance to enhance your technical skills. But what I've also found is that I've had the opportunity to advance and refine my soft skills. So my confidence, and as being a committee chairperson, leadership and organization, those have been key, because trying to make sure, I'm balancing my volunteering with the other parts of my life. So really helped to hone some of those skills for me. I think networking is another great benefit of volunteering, whether it's meeting up with people in your committee or working cross committee. I've had an opportunity to really build some really great relationships with professionals across all areas of practice and employment types. This includes, regulators, policymakers, academy staff, people who work for consulting firms, insurance companies, kind of across the board. I also found, I think it's important to note that the Academy provides access to safe spaces for collaboration, discussions, learning, and building connections with, all sorts of different people. And I've also found that it's really helped me to build a resource network. So, even when I see some of the colleagues, fellow committee members or other volunteers, and I see them out at conferences or other, industry events, it's great to be able to catch up and just find a familiar face in the room. And then in terms of, just learning, I've become a much more informed actuary. I've gained an enhanced understanding of the Academy's role, best practices, and resources available to Academy members and the profession. This deeper knowledge has helped me to better understand how my individual work fits into the broader profession, and also how to leverage Academy resources more effectively. And I'll talk a little bit more about Academy resources in the context of committees as well. And then volunteering also, as this slide shows, it gives you a little bit of the behind the scenes access to the Academy, and potentially some early access to information about changes in the profession and related industries. So then you can participate in conversations that could possibly shape public policy. And don't forget, most importantly, that chance to earn those valuable continuing education credits. So just to kind of cap off this section, volunteers can help boost visibility, become ambassadors for the Academy's mission and profession, increase impact, and bring a diversity of skills to the Academy. Volunteering is an excellent opportunity to grow professionally and personally, to provide additional value to both current and prospective employers and others with whom you interact. And I think, I just really want to make sure I note here that no matter where you are in your career, you can make an impact. So don't, if you're early on in your career, don't feel discouraged or feel like you need to gain much more experience before you can join a committee. I think having the perspectives across the spectrum of expertise really, provides good value to the profession. So now I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about volunteer roles and responsibilities. So aside from the committee chairperson, which we'll get to on the next slide, we have two main categories of participants. We have committee members and interested parties. Committee members are typically academy members, though exceptions can be made for specific expertise. They commit to actively participate in committee work, including regularly attending calls and meetings, as well as drafting and reviewing work products. All committee members must acknowledge our conflict of interest policy and attest to meeting continuing education requirements annually. The general tenure for committee members is 6 years, but that can be extended for various reasons. For the chairperson, and other exceptions can apply in certain cases. For example, there may be a situation where a volunteer's membership is continued to ensure completion of ongoing work product. But really, the intent here for this tenure conversation is just to make sure that we can allow for a balancing of experience with the introduction of new perspectives. So continuing that theme of just having diversity and a good mix of membership on the committees. And then interested parties, that's another category of participants. So committee chairpersons may approve interested parties, and interested parties are individuals who have an interest in the committee's work, but do not fit the requirement for committee membership. So some examples include members of academy leadership, a former chairperson of the committee, a person with subject matter expertise who's unable to serve as a committee member. So those are or an actuary who wants to follow a committee's activities before making the commitment to join the committee. So the intent is that the interested parties will enhance the committee's work through their expertise or experience. Interested parties must be current members of the committee unless the committee chairperson determines that a non-member's participation is critical to the committee's work and receives approval from academy leadership. As for the chairperson plays a vital leadership role with responsibilities spanning strategic leadership, committee management, project oversight and reporting, volunteer engagement and development, and governance and compliance tasks. The committee chairperson is a member of the relevant practice council and reports to the vice president. Chairpersons have the flexibility and discretion to manage their committee's activities, and they receive significant support from academy staff to plan committee meeting agendas and carry out committee activities. I've really come to rely quite a bit on academy staff, and they've been fantastic resources as I've been the chair of the Medicaid committee. And the chairperson term typically does not exceed 3 years. So with that overview, I'm going to then pass it over to Katie, who's going to get into some actual talk on volunteer opportunities.
Great. Thanks, Marlene. And thanks, everyone, for joining us today. I'm Katie Zurich. I'm the Director for State Public Policy Outreach with the Academy. And I want to encourage you to consider professionalism and public policy volunteer opportunities. And I wanted to give a few examples. I would urge you to review the charges and the information about the committees and also the many other opportunities that are available. And please raise your hand to get involved for the opportunity that sounds right for you. For more information on any of these things, you can visit the survey link and also the Academy's website at actuary.org. So I'll start with volunteer opportunities with the Actuarial Standards Board committees. They play a crucial role in establishing the professional standards that guide actuarial practice. And for each area of actuarial practice, there's a standing ASB committee responsible for drafting and preparing actuarial standards of practice, or ASOPs, for consideration by the ASB. These committees are essential to maintaining the profession's self-regulatory framework and also ensuring that our standards keep pace with the evolving practice. ASB committee work falls into three main categories: developing standards. So there on the left, the committee members are directly involved in developing exposure and final ASOP drafts for ASB approval. This work requires careful attention to technical detail and broad understanding of how standards will be applied in practice. You'll be working on documents that will guide the profession for years to come. The middle column there, monitoring developments. Committees actively consider and review new developments in their practice areas and recommend appropriate actions to the ASB. This keeps our standards current with emerging practices, technologies, and regulatory changes. It's intellectually stimulating work that keeps you at the forefront of professional development. And finally, the third column is responding to requests. These committees consider requests for ASOPs from practicing actuaries and other interested parties, and they recommend appropriate actions to the ASB. This responsive function ensures that our standards address real-world needs identified by practitioners. The ASB committee work is particularly rewarding for actuaries who want to shape the future of professional practice. The work is technically challenging and provides excellent exposure to thought leaders across the profession. It's also worth noting that ASB committee placement processes and timing differs from the academy committees on the policy side, so be sure to pay attention to the specific application requirements and deadlines. You may find yourself receiving one email notifying you of a policy committee and then a second email notifying you of an ASB committee. So just keep that in mind. The next set of high priority volunteer opportunities are through the Council for Professionalism and Education Committee, or COPE. So these opportunities are the Committee on Professional Responsibility and the Myers Award Task Force. The committee promotes deeper knowledge of professionalism, largely through topical discussion papers. Some recent publications include Navigating Ethical Dilemmas in Actuarial Practice and the Actuaries Toolbox, Peer Review, How Can It Help? The Myers Task Force is a great opportunity to collaborate with actuaries outside your practice area to consider nominations for the Robert J. Myers Public Service Award, which honors an actuary for a single noteworthy public service achievement or a career devoted to public service. The next set of slides are the Practice Council high priority volunteer opportunities. And so we'll start with casualty. The highest priority for the casualty practice right now is the P&C Extreme Events and Property Lines Committee. So for this one, the committee charge is to identify possible extreme events and identify issues relevant to the treatment of those risks, including sizing, insurability, pricing, funding, reserving, capital management, and loss mitigation. Included in the committee's charge is monitoring federal and state catastrophe legislation and interaction with the NAIC on these issues. And several of us from the Academy just returned from the summer national meeting in Columbus. And not only did we hear a lot about extreme weather events, but I'm pretty sure we experienced one during one of the days of the meeting there in Columbus, Ohio. So this one is definitely an interesting and exciting committee to be in on. The next set of high priority practice council is with the Health Practice Council. So the Health Solvency and Financial Reporting Committee does a ton of work, obviously, on health solvency and financial reporting, but what that means right now is a lot of work on H2 underwriting and other health risk-based capital related topics. Those are at the forefront, and we're definitely hearing about those from the National Association of Insurance Commissioners working groups. There's also the Individual and Small Group Markets Committee, as we look at what's going on in the individual and small groups across the country. Insurance regulators are incredibly focused on market stability and what their options are and what levers they can pull to help with market stability, with access and affordability. So this committee really gets into the weeds and talking about and commenting on those topics and more. And then the Retiree Benefits Committee is looking for folks who can add expertise regarding employer-sponsored group benefit plans with the focus on the healthcare benefit plans for retirees. And just note that this committee also has some overlap with our Retirement Practice Council. Also under health, the Healthcare Delivery Committee is more topic-based. It's not necessarily specific to a line of business like Medicaid or the individual and small group market or other government programs, but looking holistically at healthcare delivery, what's pushing prices. It really runs the gamut for all of the healthcare coverage options and thinking about how people are paying for the healthcare that they're receiving. And then finally, a brand new committee that's just standing up. So we're really hopeful that we hear from more folks on interest in our joint Life and Health Long-Term Care Combo Products Committee. So this, the issue of long-term care combo products is not necessarily new, but it continues to have so many moving pieces and so many different ways that that oversight and regulation occur, that there's a lot of room for education and a lot of conversation, both with regulators, among actuaries, and with advocates and others. It is definitely a high priority as a topic at the NAIC, but it's also a significant topic here at the Academy among our groups. And so we have this new committee that we're building, and we hope you'll think about this committee if you're interested. Even if you don't have experience specifically in long-term care combo products, having some experience with life annuities and health and long-term care as a standalone or through Medicaid is also helpful. So we hope you'll think about that. With respect to the Life Practice Council, the Annuity Products Subcommittee is relatively new, and we're largely looking at what's going on with annuities, what's going on with illustrations. At the NAIC just last week, they were talking about do annuity illustrations actually represent how the product is going to behave so that consumers can make informed decisions about purchasing an annuity product. And so there's lots of conversations about illustrations and the annuity products. So we have the subcommittee there. We also have the Life Products Committee, and this committee looks at life and annuity products, emphasizing product design and features. It informs the Academy members about key developments in coordination with other committees on solvency issues, and then we also respond to regulatory inquiries. This committee also actively engages in shaping public policy at the state, federal, and even sometimes at the international levels. So there are those conversations going on in the Life Products Committee. And finally, the Life Underwriting and Risk Classification Subcommittee, or LIRC, assesses the impact of underwriting and risk classification mandates in the life insurance and annuity marketplace. So this subcommittee does a lot of researching on regulations. It monitors industry practices and then advises on emerging topics. moving on to the Retirement Council, we have a couple of high priority groups here. The Defined Contribution Subcommittee, which provides actuarial expertise and objective analysis regarding use of defined contribution retirement plans as a means of delivering employee retirement benefit. And then the Pension Committee, which offers objective analysis and guidance on public and private retirement plans, covering funding, financial reporting, risk management, and plan design. So it covers the whole gamut. This committee works with policymakers on legislative impact. It identifies emerging trends, comment on regulations, and then we coordinate with other Academy committees and produce practice notes and comments on actuarial standards. So some deep knowledge and exciting work in my retirement practice council space. And then the Risk Management and Financial Reporting Council, and some of you, if you're very new to the Academy, you'll hear RIMFRIC. We've decided to make it a word. That's Risk Management and Financial Reporting Council. And the two important committees here are the Climate-Related Financial Disclosure Subcommittee and then the Prudential Regulations Committee. Like PNC, the Climate-Related Financial Disclosure Subcommittee is working with regulators, is engaging in conversation. So we hope you can take a look there. And then for Prudential, I'm sorry, my notes just cut out, and I know I'm going to get this wrong. The Prudential Committee develops the Academy policy on solvency and capital issues impacting multiple practice areas, and engages with government and international bodies through meetings, testimony, comment requests on any prudential regulatory matters. And then it also ensures consistency across practice areas by monitoring related work within other councils. And as many of you know, if you know RIMFRIC, or if you've been engaged with the Academy, RIMFRIC sort of houses most of our cross-practice work. So as you engage with the committees and subcommittees in RIMFRIC, you may see that the work that is being done there is being done across multiple areas and multiple practice areas. Finally, let me make sure I move my slides. The subcommittee on the Emerging Leaders Subcommittee focuses on developing future leaders within the actuarial profession by creating opportunities for growth, mentorship, and leadership development for early and mid-career actuaries. And then the Volunteer Engagement Subcommittee focuses on enhancing the volunteer experience, improving recruitment and retention, and developing strategies to maximize the impact of volunteer contributions to the Academy. So with that, I will throw it back over to Tony so he can talk about the process itself.
Thank you so much, Katie. And we had a question that came in and said, was asking about high priority committees. And if we're asking for people to self-identify. And for any volunteer opportunity, we're asking for you to self-identify, not just the high priority committees. So I think there are a little over 50 committees that are on this call for volunteers. And then there's multiple short-term volunteer opportunities as well. So for any committee or any opportunity, we're looking for you to self-identify. So, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in this process as well. So this is the process that you're going to take to complete the interest form. So right now, the call for volunteers is actually live at actuary.org/CFV. And I'm going to start walking you through some critical areas of the interest form to pay attention to. And just remember, the call for volunteers is open until September 21st. As you're completing this interest form, you do not have to do it all at once. There's also a PDF that's available in the Resource Center. If you look on your screen, you should see an area for resources. There's a PDF that lists all the current volunteer opportunities for the Call for Volunteers committees in short term. So you can download that PDF and you can sit with it and you can take your time looking at the different skills and experience that are needed for the different areas. I say that because it also has when you complete the interest form, there's a save button on the interest form. So you can save the document, email it to yourself, the link, and then you can come back and complete the form. So a few things to look at here. A few things to look at when it comes to expectations and acknowledgements. One, this year we've started with our volunteers is a minimum Academy volunteer expectations that everybody has to agree to. And these are part of our governance already, but it's just a reminder for all of our volunteers that these are the minimum expectations when you come to volunteer for the Academy. One, being prepared. Two, being engaged. You want to be reliable. You want to definitely be objective, cooperative, civil, and keep the best interest of the Academy and the committee that you're serving on in mind as you serve. And then, of course, similar to other actuarial organizations, associations, we have a conflict of interest acknowledgement that happens every year for all volunteers, as well as those who are serving as an interested party, as well as the continuing education acknowledgement, which is basically saying I'm up on my CE. So that happens every single year for all volunteers when it comes to conflict of interest, as well as the continuing education requirement. So when you look at the form, there's a couple of new things this year. I know we have some existing volunteers on the call, and then also we have new volunteers on the call as well. So as you're going through the interest form, we try to make things a little bit easier for all of our volunteers this year, and then that we're tagging some things. So Katie's been talking about those high priority committees. Well, you'll see a tag on those committees that say high priority, so they're easily identifiable. Something that is also new this year is subject matter knowledge or subject matter level. We've asked chairpersons to basically give an understanding for those who are interested in volunteering for a committee. What level of subject matter knowledge do I need to have, or what are you asking for in a volunteer to join the committee? So there's 3 different levels that you'll see. Basic, which means there's an interest in the subject and a willingness to learn are sufficient. Then you'll see foundational, which is a general understanding of the subject or some related educational experience is helpful. And then you have advanced, which is a significant technical knowledge or substantial professional experience in the subject or area is typically expected. And we are hoping that, we heard from volunteers in the past of I need to have a better understanding of what I need. What do I need to know? What's the level I need to, be a part of this committee at this time? And our chairpersons did their best and they did a good job working through this. And now you'll see this tag on all the committees in the call for volunteers as well. When it comes to skills and experience, be specific about the skills and experience relevant to each committee. You're going to see each committee is going to tell you, okay, this is the number of volunteers we're looking for, this is the skills we're looking for, and this is the experience and background we're looking for. So when you pick a committee, you're going to be asked to basically say how your skills and experience and your background relate to what the committee is asking for. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to show you part of the form that talks about this. And this area of the form will have, the subject matter level there explained to you as well as high priority. But in addition, you'll see that when you get to this area of the form, you're going to see volunteer interest areas. Right now, casualty is checked. That means all the casualty committees are showing. If I uncheck casualty, it's not going to show me all the committees anymore. So anything that you select, it'll drop down. It'll show you all the committees for that area. It'll tell you all the information, the description of the committee, as well as the number of volunteers needed, experience, background, and the skills. When you get down to the bottom of the form of that area, you'll see where it's going to ask you for skills, experience, and background, as well as why you're interested in volunteering for that committee. So this is the area that you need to spend the most time on. So that's something just to keep in mind as you're completing the form, that area is most important, and that's why it's good to download that PDF, look at the different committees and other opportunities that may be available, and then, make your decision and then go in and complete the interest form. When it comes to committee preferences, we're going to ask you to select up to 3 committees. Again, I'll talk also about short-term volunteer opportunities, because if you're not looking to join a committee, you're just interested in short-term volunteer opportunities, you do not need to complete this section. But for committee preferences, you can select up to 3 committees. And we're going to ask you to tell us which are the committee that you want to be on the most, the first, the second, and the third. In addition, we want to know how many committees do you want to serve on? We've learned in the past from volunteers that just because I show an interest in 3 committees doesn't mean I want to serve on 3 committees. So we're going to ask you, how many committees do you want to serve on? So if you select 2 and you really only want to serve on 1 committee, that's fine. And that's why we ask that question. We also ask, are you open to serve on other committees? Because there are times where volunteers will fill out the information. You all do a great job with that. And there may be another committee that's more appropriate for the skills and experience that you have. So the committee, I think the Academy does a good job of matching those skills and experience with what's appropriate for where the volunteer is at in their career and how they can most benefit, as well as make an impact at the Academy. You'll also see that the committee listings will show you the availability, letting you know the time commitment per month that they're asking. Some committees may be asking for 2 hours a month. Some may be asking for 6 or 7 hours per month. Also, willingness to travel. Most committees don't have much or any travel, but there may be a few that have it. So please pay attention to that. And then feel free to upload your resume or your CV. That's optional. If you don't have one up to date, it's okay. But it is helpful to have the information, but it's not going to affect your placement on any committee. And then demographics is optional as well. That's good for us to have so we can understand that we have a good balance of our committees when it comes to thought and other demographic information as well. Now, I mentioned short-term volunteer opportunities. And something that's new this year is that you can now, raise your hand to help a committee and not join that committee. And that's by way of a short-term committee opportunities. And these opportunities relate to specific projects, assignments, or other time-limited activities that a committee may have. So you'll be able to raise your hand and actually say, hey, I want to help out with this committee. And these are my skills and experience that relate to this committee. And you'll be put on a list that a chairperson will have, and that chairperson may contact you if something becomes available. And you can always say yes or no. But when something becomes available, you're basically saying, hey, you're more than welcome to contact me. And what I'll do, before I talk about volunteer pools, I'm going to show you that section of the form like I did the committee section. It's very similar, but it's for short-term volunteer opportunities. So again, you'll see the question there, are you interested in this opportunity? And if you check on the no box, it won't take you anywhere. You can then scroll on down to the volunteer opportunity pools, which are opportunities like being a peer reviewer, writing for contingencies, or being on a focus group, or helping with student and educator outreach. But if you come back up to the form and you click on yes, similar to the committee area, what's going to happen is another area of checkboxes is going to show up. And then you want to click on the area that you may be interested in. So once again, we'll click on Casualty Practice Council. And then all the casualty committees that are offering short-term opportunities will show up. If you click on I'm interested, similar to the committee area, you'll see skills, experience, and background, and you'll complete that information related to what the committee is offering. So hopefully that gives you a good understanding of both the committee opportunities and the short-term volunteer opportunities, how you can make your selection there and present the information that relates to the committee, basically the skills and experience that you have that relate to what the committee is asking for. Other information that we ask for is, of course, your personal details. We want your best preferred email and phone number, just in case we need to get in touch with you, your professional designations, as well as your professional background, meaning your employment type, your primary or additional area of practice, the focus within your area of practice, as well as if you have any previous volunteer experience. Again, like Marlene says, previous volunteer experience is not required of the Academy or anyplace else, but it's just good to know at times. But at the same time, if you're a new volunteer, we're always looking for new volunteers, new fresh perspectives, and no matter where you are in your career, you can make an impact. So just keep that in mind as you're going through this, completing this interest form. Now I'm going to throw it back to Katie. She's going to talk about next steps, and then we're going to go into a Q&A.
There's my mute button. Okay. So moving on to the next step. For the next step, you will need to visit the Academy website and review the committees seeking volunteers. Consider which opportunities align with your interests and expertise, and then you'll fill out the volunteer interest form with your committee preferences relevant experience and qualifications, and you can select up to 3 committees. Then you also will upload your resume or your CV, and then applications will be reviewed by committee chairpersons, and you will receive an email notifying you of the outcome. So as you can see, call for volunteers is already open, and it closes on September 21st. So make sure you fill everything out by then, and then we'll go through the decision and selection process through the fall. And then after you've received notice, you will see that there's volunteer orientation, and then your committee term will begin on the 1st of the new year. You need to know that you are not alone. If you're sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, joining this committee or being a volunteer is so much, we at the Academy, other volunteers, we will be by your side as you begin your volunteer journey, and we really hope that you will join us. We have our practice council vice presidents who provide leadership and oversight. The chairperson of each committee leads the committee's work, facilitates meetings, and coordinates volunteer efforts in partnership with staff and with practice council leadership. We have staff liaisons who coordinate operations and logistics and serve as advisors and support staff support. We have staff actuaries who are here with us on the Academy staff, and they have a deep knowledge of the public policy environment. We have our volunteer and member engagement manager providing training, recruitment, and assistance of recognition. We have the volunteer engagement subcommittee giving strategic guidance and leadership to the volunteer program. And then again, Academy staff working in policy, work product, and governance guidance. We're here to support you. And we love what we do, and we love working with all of you. So with that, I think it's time for Q&A. So I'll throw it back to Tony.
Thank you, Katie. A question that we received, and actually, Marlene, I'm glad you brought this up. When Marlene and I were talking about the slide deck, and this question actually just came up. If I want to continue on my current committees, do I need to complete the call for volunteers? No, you do not. And I'm so glad this question was asked. If you're already on a committee, you do not have to complete the call for volunteers to stay on that committee. If there is a new committee that you see you have interest in, you can complete the call for volunteers, or you can also, if you're in contact with that chairperson, you can reach out to the chairperson as well if you're in contact with them. So I'm glad somebody asked that question. And Marlene, a question that came in that I think you can help with this. When you first started as a volunteer, the question we often get is, for someone who's new, where do I start? Where should I start? Can you talk a little bit about, when you were first joining as a volunteer, of like how you made a decision of where to start and what committee that you wanted to be on?
Sure. So I generally like to volunteer, and I had volunteered previously with some committees and grading some exams for the Society of Actuaries. And then, as I was talking to various colleagues, and I enjoyed that working with the society, then as I was talking to various colleagues, they had talked about volunteering for the Academy as, on that first slide that I mentioned about, shedding an actuarial lens on public policy, like that really appealed to me. And so I work in the Medicaid area of practice. I saw that there was a Medicaid committee. I knew people who were on the Medicaid committee. So I signed up, and, in my first few meetings, I didn't, I mostly just kind of listened to kind of get an idea for how the committee worked. And then, as topics came up that I was interested in or I had expertise in, I was able to then contribute more. And then as opportunities to participate on issue briefs or working in smaller subcommittee groups came up, that helped me to get the confidence to at least, be able to speak up a little bit more in those small group environments. So I think there's lots of different ways, for you to find your quote unquote comfort zone in the volunteer area.
Thank you, Marlene. And there was a question that just came in. Is there an opportunity to learn about specific current or upcoming committee projects and priorities before committing to volunteering for the committee? Good question. Katie, can you jump in on that? I know that on our website for different committees, you can see and get a good understanding of what committees are working on if you go to the sections, or have worked on, I should say.
So, yeah, I think there are a couple of ways to go about it. First, there's going to the website and seeing the things that the committees are working on, and you'll see, that there are issue briefs that come out, and those usually are shorter term projects. You'll see the kinds of practice notes that the committees and subcommittees are working on specifically for the risk-based capital committees and subcommittees, for like H2 underwriting, or for C1, C2, and C3, and R4 and R5. And those letters don't mean anything really to anybody who's not paying attention to risk-based capital. But those are very long-term projects. So when you see the products from those committees, you can see that, like, where they are in the process and sort of get a sense of where they're headed. I think the other thing you can do is reach out to Academy staff, and we can answer some questions for you and try to help troubleshoot if you're sort of wondering, like, oh, I kind of like this, but I kind of like this. I think checking in with the Academy staff, and then if it would be helpful, we can also put you in touch with current volunteers or chairpersons if you have really deep questions that we can't help with. So I think those are some of the options.
And we received a question of how can a retired interested parties participate in short-term volunteer opportunities? And I think I'll take a stab at this one. For the short-term volunteer opportunities that we have right now, you don't have to be a member of the committee for the short-term volunteer opportunities. What we're talking about with these new short-term volunteer opportunities is basically you being put on a list for the committee ones if you're interested. In addition, if you're looking at some of the pools we have, for example, we're always looking for peer reviewers. There's the Speakers Bureau. There's a Student Educational Outreach, which is a new one in which we're looking for volunteers. You don't have to travel around the country, but if you're in your community and you're willing to go speak to a school or organization or a company about being an actuary, that's something that's new. And actually, we're really looking for a lot of volunteers to fill that role because we get those requests. And it'll be great to have Academy volunteers in their neighborhoods, in their communities, going out and speaking on behalf of the profession, so in the Academy. So hopefully that answers your question. And Marlene, I'm going to throw another one at you, since you're the only volunteer person who's an actuary who is volunteering. And we get this a lot. Many people ask, how hard is it to balance, my workload and then also volunteering, and how have other people done it? So I can't answer that question. And Katie can't answer that question. So we have to throw this at you. How have you done that with being a professional, of course, and then also serving for the Academy? And I don't even know what other things you have.
Well, I can jump in here. I think Tony was asking just about balancing volunteering with other commitments that I have, and really, I've really been able to look at what was the time commitment. I think sometimes on that call for volunteers form, it may talk about the time commitment, number of hours. So, in times when I'm busy, I just make sure that I don't raise my hand to work on a project that may take more time than I have available. Most of the committee calls are usually either an hour a month or an hour every other month, and I'm able to just kind of let that, make sure that I'm being mindful of what I'm committing to. I know it's volunteering, and everybody on those committees have other obligations. And so as a chairperson too, I've had to be sensitive to that, but making sure that, early on, I send out a survey for what are the different kinds of topics that people are interested in possibly volunteering on. It should, proposed rule come out, or, a topic come out where we think, oh, it would be helpful to have an issue brief that educates the public. And so I think trying to get ahead of that in the year, and then just planning and trying to get maybe more volunteers than are actually needed for something, knowing that people might need to flex in and out. So I would say it's not a perfect science, but I think I always appreciate whatever time people can give. So hopefully that gives people a good idea to know, don't be afraid to volunteer, to think, oh, now I have to spend, 20 hours a month on this, or, whatever, to know that whatever time you can give is going to be appreciated. So don't let the time commitment get in the way of, or a fear of a time commitment get in the way of raising your hand.
And I would also add, from the Academy staff perspective, we know you all have busy lives, busy work. You all have day jobs. You're volunteering, so we try to manage that. And as as deadlines get short, or if things need to change, we do our best to kind of manage around that and support the efforts that way.
Hello, everybody. Had a little technical glitch. But another question, Katie, for you all in policy, we have the committees that have the high priority committees, of course. When it comes to volunteers joining a committee, can you talk a little bit about the onboarding process that you all take to help ease volunteers into their opportunities?
Sure. So in addition to the volunteer training that will happen after notifications have gone out about volunteer placement, you will receive a sort of welcome packet email with kind of a summary of the resources that are available to you. We use Box for our document sharing and collaboration. We use Zoom as our meeting platform, Outlook obviously for emails, and we use a platform called Higher Logic to support Academy Connect, which is a platform that allows each committee to have their own space for sharing documents, having conversations about specific topics. And so the summary that you receive when you're getting started as a volunteer on a new committee will include the links and some instructions for getting yourself set up for all of those things. We can do some troubleshooting with Box if you're, if your either employer IT system, or if your laptop is blocking the Box access. We have some workarounds, and then we can, if there are issues there, we can work on that and figure out some next steps. And then you'll have time to speak with the PPM, or the policy project manager for the committee if you need. And then at the beginning of each year, the first committee meeting as an agenda item is sort of level setting for what's happening in 2027. So there's time and space to get to know everybody, to introduce yourself, to have some conversations, and we try to give fairly detailed instructions on all the different tools you have access to and that you can use to support your volunteership.
Thank you, Katie. So just remind everybody there's some resources that are available. Of course, if you go to actuary.org/CFV, you'll see the call for volunteers link there, and they'll take you to the interest form, and it has all the information that you need. Also on the Resource Center here in the webinar, please don't forget to download the PDF. It has all the committee and short-term volunteer opportunities. Those links are still also available in the interest form, so don't worry if you forget now. They're available in the interest form, as well as a link to all the existing committees at the Academy, in which Katie was talking about earlier, where you can get more information about what the committees are working on and the actual charge of each committee. Last but not least, if you have any questions or you need any help with anything, you can always reach out to me. My email is volunteer@actuary.org. I'm Tony Washington. And don't forget, for any upcoming Academy events, you can see all the upcoming events at actuary.org and see our calendar of events there. And I know some Academy staff will be seeing you all soon with all the different conferences coming up. So Marlene, thank you so much for joining us today. Katie, thank you so much for your help today. Behind the scenes, Bill, thank you so much. And thank you all for joining us. And we look forward to having you as a volunteer with the Academy. Have a great day.